Moving on to the issue around Mr. Trump, who is fighting charges about mishandling secret documents and being accused of moving them to Florida when he left the White House 2 years ago. In the last few moments, Mr. Trump has pled not guilty to all 37 charges made against him. Weirdly, even if convicted, Mr. Trump has vowed to keep going with his campaign to return to the White House, even if that means doing so from a prison cell. Why do Americans still give him the time of day with all these charges hanging over? However, despite his belligerent tone, the former commander-in-chief is reportedly struggling to find attorneys willing to defend him during the proceedings in Florida. Does Donald Trump need to accept it's now time to throw in the towel? Or will this latest episode in the Trump saga rouse more public sympathy? Well, I'm delighted to be joined by Susan Platt, former Chief of Staff to Joe Biden in the US Senate. Thank you so much for joining us. Could you explain how it can be possible that somebody can run for president potentially from a prison cell and still expect to get any votes? This is deeply puzzling from somebody who looks at the English Constitution.
Well, thank you for having me, and I totally agree with you. It is just kind of beyond the realm of any understanding whatsoever. And Donald Trump has tweeted that it's a sad day in our history. It's a very sad day. That's one thing I can agree with him on. For a former president who was sworn in to uphold the laws of this country, the Constitution of this country, to flagrantly disregard all the different laws pertaining to national secrets, is beyond me. The man had 102 documents, classified documents, some with our nuclear code secrets, kept in a bathroom, in a shower, in a ballroom. And the thing that I just don't quite understand, and I don't think many of us can understand, these are serious charges. Why does the man insist on keeping them? Why was he playing cat and mouse with his attorneys? Why was he playing cat and mouse with the FBI? I think these are things we have to find out, and I think it's a shame that we're not going to be able to see or hear the proceedings in the court. I think the country needs to see and hear that. As you just mentioned, why would anybody give him the time of day? Well, let's find out the facts. And just recently, we have heard, it's been leaked, that there have been lawyers' notes, there have been recordings where Donald Trump has showed people he knew full well they were classified documents, and he still showed them. So it's a flagrant disregard. It's someone whose emotional maturity lacks any understanding for someone who had been the president of our United States.
But isn't it slightly strange that the US has now gone to a situation where anyone who leaves office, or even in office, politics is taken to the courts? So Bill Clinton was impeached. President Biden has had secret documents found in one of his residences. There was a campaign, the Lock Up Hillary Clinton campaign. Is this the right way to do politics? After all, Ford pardoned Nixon because he thought it was not distinguished for the US to have a former president being prosecuted.
Well, I think he did the right thing. But what you're talking about with President Biden and former Secretary of State Clinton, you're comparing apples and oranges. Joe Biden said, come in, take a look, open it up for the FBI. On the other hand, Donald Trump just lied and obfuscated and lied again. This is what we don't understand. Hillary Clinton was found to not be charged with anything. It was not something she did on purpose. We know Donald Trump is purposefully withholding these documents. Why? Why? To what end?
I'm in a funny way quite pleased with this, because it seems that with his base, this makes Donald Trump more popular, more likely to win the Republican nomination, and from a Democrat point of view, easier to beat in the general election?
Well, maybe so, but I really have to look at it from a standpoint of just being sorry for the state of our country right now. I have to agree with you. It's almost like we're about to have a three-ring circus. He's been indicted in New York. He's now been indicted in Miami, or about to be. He'll be indicted in Georgia. This is someone who has a flagrant disregard for what's happening. But I will tell you this. Similar things happened with Richard Nixon in the beginning. His base rallied around him, and they stood with him. But if you make a special note of what the members of the United States Senate and even one or two members of the Republican Party running for president right now for 2024, they're all starting to back up a little bit, because what are we dealing with? We're dealing with national security.
Okay,
There's
well,
nothing
thank you very much,
more important than
Susan.
national
I'm very
security
grateful
secrets.
for you taking time to join us. But now with me is Sarah Elliott, spokesman for Republicans Overseas UK. Sarah, thank you very much for coming in.
Pleasure.
This is so extraordinary from a British point of view to see a former American president being charged on a state and federal level, but saying he'll run for president from a prison cell if necessary.
Yes, well, and he gets even more popular with Republicans right now. 76% of Republican primary voters think this is politically motivated, that this indictment will hold no ground, and that Joe Biden is weaponizing the Department of Justice to go after his biggest political rival. And even 14% of those people are like him even more. So the base is definitely rallying around Trump. We see a boost in the polls of about 20 points, which puts him 40 points in some polls ahead of his next contender.
So that's for the Republican primary, but he has to win a general election. Where are the independents in this? Are they thinking it's all a terrible political stitch-up, or are they thinking we don't want a criminal becoming our president?
Well, and to note, in the U.S., independents are growing. They're about the same size as Democrats and Republicans. So this is a very important cohort, and they don't like the look of this. I mean, 40-some% think it might be politically motivated. This is the problem we have. We have someone who may have created a crime or committed a crime. His former Attorney General, Bill Barr, said this is really serious. I don't know what his defense will be. But at the same time, we've never had a sitting president use the Department of Justice to go after his biggest rival.
But is there any evidence that the sitting president has used the Department of Justice, or is the Department of Justice just doing its normal thing?
Well, you would think that. However, Republicans in particular are comparing it to Hillary Clinton, who, by the way, did swipe her computer before giving it to the FBI back in 2016, erased 33,000 emails before giving it to them. And yet she was just slapped on the wrist. She was not indicted.
But Trump was in charge at that point, so couldn't he have used the Department of Justice politically?
No, that was under Obama at the time. That was during the campaign.
Okay, so it was. But then Trump came in. Wouldn't he have been able to do it 6 months later?
And he didn't. And I think that there could be many reasons for it. One, he was being investigated for Russia collusion, which there was absolutely no substance to whatsoever. But I think also there has to be a really compelling case to go after a president of the United States that can rally and unify the country behind such an indictment, like there was with Nixon. And so a lot of people are saying this is not Nixon-level crime that you're doing. And we'll see if it sticks to the wall.
And Nixon, after all, retired from the presidency.
He resigned,
he was then pardoned, and he didn't try and get back into politics later in his life. So everybody was satisfied with that.
Yes.
In this case, the Democrats must be delighted that Trump will be the candidate potentially next year, that he must be the easiest Republican for Biden to defeat. And you've got this extraordinary situation where you've got a quite elderly chap standing against somebody who is indicted so many times.
No, exactly. I think this is the Democrat playbook. This is why they're throwing out all the indictments and criminal accusations they can to catch him up. And it's working.
But why do Republicans fall for this? Why don't they realise that if they put up anybody else to stand against Biden, anybody else would almost certainly win? Or am I misinterpreting something?
No, I'm completely with you, Jacob. And I would like us to move on as a party. I think Trump had a strong 4 years in office policy-wise. He had good outcomes. So let's take the message and get a new messenger. And I think, but you have to get through the primary. And the primary is when the die-hard Republican voters come out and choose the nominee. They're just very committed to him. A lot of people who maybe didn't like the behavior of 2020 and January 6th, but look at the way the Democrats are behaving and treating him, a former president, and they go, you know what, let's get our fighter back in the ring and let him sock it to him kind of thing.
Which he may not succeed in doing. Well, Sarah, thank you very much.